I'm joined now by Senator Dianne Fienstein, who led today's hearings into the Ramos and Compean case, and Senator John Cornyn. Together, they led the questioning over the hearing. If I may, Senator Fienstein, let me begin with you. You were, frankly, far more determined than I expected. I thought you were aggressive. Did you learn what you wanted to in today's hearing?
Yes, I learned what I wanted to learn, and basically I think this is a case of prosecutorial overreach. Senator Cornyn and I have talked, and we have decided that we will write a letter to the President, and we will urge commutation of the sentence, both of Border Patrol Agent Ramos and Border Patrol Agent Compean.
Senator Fienstein, can I just say thank you? That's amazing. And Senator Cornyn, it is, I think for those of us who've been following the case, to watch the 5 senators in that room today, to watch each of you, it was I think we could call it restorative. You were looking for the truth, the idea of seeking computation. I know 2 families that are going to be thrilled, as well as those 2 men, for your efforts. What changed, if indeed your views were changed, after today's hearing?
Do you want to go ahead, John?
Well, Lou, I would say, I think, as Senator Fienstein indicated, this sentence was clearly excessive, and mainly because a statute that Congress never really intended would be applied to a law enforcement officer under these circumstances gave a minimum mandatory 10-year sentence stacked on top of the other offenses. And then, of course, there was the immunity deal offered to this drug dealer and an unlimited visa, which allowed him to travel back and forth without supervision and probably allowed him to do dump another load of narcotics in the United States. A lot of mistakes, a lot of errors that just didn't need to be.
Let me, if I might just add
Sure.
to that, because I agree very much with what Senator Cornyn said, and I think the fact that he's a former Texas State Supreme Court jurist means something, a great deal in all of this. I'm not a lawyer, but I have sat on the Judiciary Committee now for some 14 years and hopefully have picked up some law. The reason I say this is a prosecutorial overreach is because 12 counts were charged against these 2 men. There were, in fact, plea bargains. The plea bargains submitted by the prosecutors were for sentences maybe in the vicinity of 2 and 3 years. They were turned down by the defendants. What the jury didn't know was that the mandatory sentence was in one of these counts.
Right.
And that mandatory sentence was 10 years. So if they found them guilty, they had no choice but to have 10 years put on top of everything else, which would have totaled about 2 years. So it seems to me that there is a good case that can be made for a commutation of sentence.
A commutation of sentence. We also have in Congress, the House of Representatives, pushing through Congressman Hunter's pardon, seeking a congressional pardon for these agents. A pardon is also possible. Do you think you're using, obviously you're referring to a commutation of sentence, why would a pardon not be as effective or as desirable in your judgment? Senator Cornyn.
If I could weigh in on that, and let me just say that Senator Fienstein, I'd take her over a lot of lawyers I know any day.
After watching her today, I think that a lot of people would agree with you.
She's tough. But I have to tell you that, of course, a pardon or commutation was both within the power of the President of the United States. Obviously, Scooter Libby getting a commutation of his sentence by the President recently, and I hope he'll give the same sort of consideration to these 2 Border Patrol agents. But I know Congressman Hunter, in the absence of that executive branch commutation or pardon, has introduced a bill. I'm going to have to look at that to see if I think that'll fly. I think that's, in the absence of anything else, a good effort, but I think eventually this is going to be something the President's going to have to consider.
There's one more thing that I'd just like to mention, Lou, that became clear to me in this case, that a law enforcement officer faced with somebody that's bringing over $1,200,000 worth of marijuana. And the culprit wants to escape. So the law enforcement officer says, stop. And the culprit just keeps going. Now, he cannot fire. He cannot stop him. So he is faced with either having to outrun him. And let's say it's a 45-year-old police officer. How does he outrun a 22-year-old? The fact is he can't. And I think this may be one of the reasons why we've got so much drugs coming across the border.
Yeah.
An law enforcement officer says stop, and it means nothing. And this we've got to take a look at.
You know, Senators, to both your credit, you referred to what Congress needs to do here. We've had a 30-year war on drugs, and the tragedies and the casualties in that war have been enormous. We've got to come to terms with it. I just have to say, as one who's been following this case carefully, closely, and looking for justice for these two agents, I'm moved by your decision, both of you, to seek a commutation from the president. I hope that your interest will continue, and we thank you for your interest to this point. It was a remarkable proceeding today. I have to tell you, as you both know, that I'm a rigorous critic of Congress. It's nice to see Congress, Senator. It is nice to see Congress, the Senate, and in the persons of yourselves, doing the job that the people put you in office for. I just can't commend you too highly for your efforts and for your good hearts. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lou.
Thank you.
A reminder now to vote in our poll. The question is, do you believe Congress is serious about correcting the outrageous miscarriage of justice against Ramos and Compean? Yes or no? Please cast your vote at LouDobbs.com. We'll have the results for you in just a few moments. And next, to President Bush, he's demanding a presidential pardon for imprisoned Border Patrol agents Ramos and Compean. Congressman Poe joins us now. Congressman, good to have you here. I don't know if you were able to hear. I know you attended the hearing in the over at the Dirksen building in the Senate today. I don't know if you heard Senators Cornyn and Fienstein say they're going to seek a commutation of sentence from the president for agents Ramos and Compean. Your reaction?
I'm glad to see that our Senate is responding this way. I think a commutation is appropriate. Of course, I think a pardon would be appropriate because in this case, Lou, the prosecution had to choose between drug dealers or between border agents that violated some policy in which to prosecute. I think they chose the wrong side. And since they chose the wrong side and gave away really the courthouse and the mineral rights to the drug dealer to get him to testify, the border agents should be pardoned completely.
And we should point out to our audience, a former judge in Texas, a man who is intimately familiar with the case. You also know U.S. Attorney Johnny Sutton. Straightforwardly, you heard Dianne Fienstein, Democrat of California, a senator, a distinguished senator, say this was, in her mind, a clear case of overreach by the prosecutor. Do you concur?
No question about it, it was. I think what the testimony showed today was that the U.S. Attorney's Office was relentless in making sure that they got a conviction against these two border agents. And it was very disturbing how much resources were used in the prosecution of this case and how they chose to prosecute them. And it's very disturbing that our U.S. Attorney's Office is doing this.
Congressman, the House will be holding a hearing on the 31st of this month, 2 weeks from today. What do you expect to be the focal point?
The House hearing, I think, will pick up where this hearing left off and go a little further to find out really the motivation of the U.S. Attorney's Office in not only this case, but other cases like Gilmer Hernandez, who was prosecuted by the same office.
A county sheriff's deputy. Well, Congressman Ted Poe, we thank you. We look forward to that hearing, and we thank you for being with us here tonight.
Thank you, Lou.
Coming up next, we'll have the results of our poll, a few more of your thoughts. Stay with us. The results of our poll tonight, you're expressing a little skepticism tonight. 74% of you saying you don't believe Congress is serious about correcting the outrageous miscarriage of justice against Ramos and Compean. We'll find out.